Welcome back, everybody, to our new podcast called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is a podcast about food. Basically, we're going to be talking to chefs. We're going to be talking to owners, managers, everybody in the industry when it comes to food. We might be even talking a little bit more. Before we mention that, I want to introduce my co-host, Michael Quinn, the Sausage King of New York. How you doing, Michael Quinn?
Very good. This is awesome. We put this together. This is the inaugural podcast for Wiener Magazine, which I launched over the summer. It's Wiener with two E's. That's wienermag.com. And so far, we've done some great reviews of New York restaurants. We had a few celebrity recipes. Steve Shrippa, Blue Blood Sopranos, participated in the magazine. But I'm really excited to get going with the podcast. And me and Mikey Betts here, you could talk a little bit more how we connected.
Yeah, so we connected at McSorley's through Frank the Tank from Barstool Sports. Shout out Frank the Tank. It was pretty awesome. And ever since that, chemistry hit off, and here we are making a podcast. So we're going to see how it goes. Hopefully you guys like it and the listeners like it, and we'll go from there. But now I want to introduce a very special guest, the best restaurant in Chicago for all your steakhouses. Steakhouse, number one steakhouse in Chicago. That's the best way to put it. Mr. David Flom from Chicago Cut. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on today.
Look at you all dolled up, looking great right now, ready to sell some steaks. Love it.
We are halfway through lunch right now and just took a break to get on the phone with you guys. But awesome you guys are doing this, and obviously look forward to all the good stuff. I was just at McSorley's about a month ago, and obviously your choices are light or dark, so
that's all you have. 20. And you have Feltman's Hot Dogs, which I own. I own the Hot Dogs Ranch Feltman's, which is great. And what's great? We connected, me and Mike, at McSorley's. I introduced Frank the Tank to McSorley's and Feltman's Hot Dogs there about 2 years ago. So it's kind of like, it seems like everything revolves around that place. And I used to work there as a kid, Dave. So that's where I kind of learned how to make mustard back in the day. And I'm gonna make sure I shamelessly plug my brand Feltman's of ConeyIsland.com. We ship nationwide, by the way. But anyway, you're a guest today, and it's just great to have you here. And I've heard a lot about Chicago Cut Steakhouse, and I just love talking about steak. Like I said, many people say, "Oh, you're the Sausage King of New York. You own Feltman's, which is the world's first hot dog brand. Before Nathan's, before Vienna beef, Feltman invented the hot dog in 1867. So people think, oh, that's my thing is hot dogs, which I like hot dogs. But I'm going to be honest with you, Dave, my thing is steak. I love steakhouses. I love the experience. I love making them at home. There's nothing better to go and get like a nice prime ribeye, throwing some kosher salt on it, searing it, put it in the cast iron skillet in the broiler. But I also love going to some of the top steakhouses. Now, you started cooking, if I'm not mistaken, or it's cooking for your friends and family at 10 years old. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how you got involved with the culinary world at such a young age?
So I had a wonderful mother who loved to cook. We probably ate 1 to 2 meals out a year. Mm-hmm. Other than that, we always ate at home, and Mom would always cook, and she would always have dinner parties for 8 to 10 people, etc. And so it always looked fun to me. It was always great to be there. It was great to plan a menu, go through the excitement of getting the ingredients, and then, putting the puzzle together when it came time for the dinner.
Now, your background, your name Flom, that's Bavarian, right? That's German background?
No, it's actually Norwegian. So
Norwegian,
it got translated when you come to America. So in Norway, they spelled FLA with a circle above an M. It's a small town at the end of the longest fjord called the Songsfjord, which is off of the town of Bergen. So the town became famous because they found a Russian submarine at 1,000 feet down in the fjord there in the 1980s. They were just doing drills in the fjord that they had no idea was there. So nobody even knew the town of 600 was even there then.
That's incredible. Now, you mentioned your mom. Does your cultural background influence what you make, or any besides your mom's cooking, or is it just, how did you come to do what you do now as far as the style of cooking and the steak and all that type of stuff?
Oh, I think as I evolved and got older, that's what I loved. My mentor growing up was a gentleman named Gabriel Vidi, who owned a restaurant called Gabriel's in Chicago. It was Zagat's number one Italian restaurant for 15 years while I worked there, and he was my mentor, truly. And then I fell in love with steak probably in college because I used to make my dad take me to Morton's every time he visited me in college, and that's why I started to eat a lot of steak.
Very nice. And how much is it the hospitality aspect of it? Because some of my favorite restaurants, and the ones I review for Wiener Magazine, these people are legendary, not just for the food, but when you walk in, you're part of the family. They sit down, they ask how your day was, how's your uncle doing, how's your mom? Like, how much is it that? I mean, it's both, obviously, but really, how much do you emphasize the hospitality aspect of it?
I mean, it's a major part. I mean, the godfather of steakhouses in Chicago when I grew up was Gibson's, and Steve Lombardo and Hugo Raleigh were in those restaurants every lunch, every dinner as a child growing up when I went there. When we went to Gene and Giorgetti's, the owners were there as well. I mean, when I went to Lettuce Entertaining restaurants, Rich Melman was in them. So I think it's a huge part, and specifically in Chicago, it's a monster part of it. Nice. So Matt, my partner, and myself are here every day, every meal service.
So Mikey Betts, you're a patron there, correct?
Yes, I am. I love.
So tell me what's the experience like going to Chicago Cut Steakhouse? Like,
so look, when you walk in there, you are 99% going to see a celebrity first. Now, number two, you walk in there, the ambiance is the greatest ambiance you could have when you're walking in. Everybody's dressed up, dolled up. Everybody looks cool. There's always one table with one Italian dude with a tie on that you don't want to talk to because he looks like he means business. And I mean, the food is just incredible. And my favorite part about Chicago Cut, and I want to talk to you more, David, about it. I talk about it on the Mikey Betts show all the time, is the dry aged steaks. They are dry aged. That's the difference. That's what makes it. That's the key. So it's got to be the best place to get a steak in Chicago. The way they age it, the way that they season it, and it's I'll let you talk more about it because I'm hyping it up a little bit too much. So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
So, a lot of people ask me, how do I know that I'm getting the best steak when I go to another restaurant? I said, first of all, look at the menu. If the menu doesn't say 100% of what we serve is USDA, and that's the key part, USDA prime steaks, then you're probably not at the right steakhouse.
Getting choice.
So that's on our menu. So a lot of steakhouses today serve USDA prime steaks, but they might have 12 steaks on the menu. 4 of them are USDA prime, and the rest of them are USDA choice or even USDA select. So we're 100% USDA prime. The second thing I learned when we studied all the steakhouses, and specifically in New York, and looking at places like Luger's and Smith & Wollensky and Wolfgang's, was that they were dry aging. And the flavors that came out in dry aging were so exciting to us compared to wet aging, which would traditionally have what been done in Chicago for years. Obviously, people don't dry age in Chicago because the cost is so expensive.
It is.
You lose a third of the steak when you dry age. So now the prices are going up. And how are you going to stay competitive if no one else is doing it?
Yeah.
We decided we'd make it all up in volume and we'd make it up in alcohol. And so we dry age 35 days. We do it in-house. We cut our own steaks by hand the day of that you're going to eat them. You think about most steakhouses, they have another butcher do all the work, and the steaks are cut 3 days before. They're cryovac, and if you understand cryovacking, when you plastic wrap them, you have to put heat on the cryovac to seal it. That also starts cooking the steak and puts some funky flavors in the steak. I never liked that.
No.
And then lastly, we use a straight blade steak knife rather than a serrated tip. Serrated tips tear steak, where straight blades slice through them and leave the juices into them. If you eat a steak with a serrated tip knife, you'll notice there's a puddle of juice on your plate after you're done. When you cut with a straight blade, it's gone. It's in your mouth. It's in your stomach. So that's where the flavor's at. So we want that flavor to go with you, not stay on the plate.
It's interesting you say that many of the places that you listed in New York, and you don't have to tell us where you source your steak from, they all come from a place called Master Purveyors. And Master Purveyors, in my opinion, is the best purveyor of meats, from Luger to Smith & Wollensky. And like you said before, they do all that. And actually, I think the lady who owns Peter Luger once a week chooses and selects the porterhouse at Master Purveyors before it's sent. And I often buy steak from Master Purveyors because when the pandemic started, they lost a lot of their accounts temporarily because all the restaurants were closed. And I would get the prime and, of course, USDA prime. And even at home, I just love the way, when you take that prime, how much you can do with it. If you have the right broiler, if you have the cast iron steak, Do you cook steak at home at all? How do you prepare it?
Yeah, I mean, so I cook steak at home. I eat steak a lot, and obviously I love it. I think it's fun to play around with steak, just to have variety, and obviously cook it over hardwood, cook it over charcoal. Try smoking it. I've even butter poached it and stuff like that.
Wow.
But still, my all-time favorite is to put it under a broiler at a high temp and just get that caramelization on it.
How hot? 1600?
Yep, that's exactly the number we use.
That's it. Yeah.
So
you can't have those at home.
No.
You see, that takes a lot of guts and a lot of balls, because I would not want to do my job at home, right? Like you cook at home, steak at home. Why would you cook steak at home when you already got the best steaks at your restaurant? You know what I'm saying?
Well, here's the problem. When you're the guy with the restaurant on the block, right? Everybody stands on their back porch looking over to see what you're cooking. So then if you don't cook, then they think that you're, for lack of better words, a weenie. And so then they want to see you go out there and really go at it out on the grill on Sunday afternoon.
They don't want to see you baking lasagna when you're the steak guy of Chicago.
Or, some delivery coming up with chicken. It's just not right.
No. You have to drive over to the next town if you want chicken.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. So this was not your first place. Chicago Cut wasn't your first place. Give us like your journey on what brought you to Chicago Cut and what made you want to evolve this restaurant into what it is today.
So my first job out of college was at this restaurant called Gabriel's in Highwood, Illinois, which is a northern suburb. I was the general manager at 21. I worked there for 2 years. It was a Zagat #1 Italian restaurant in Chicago. 2 years into it, most of our customers were in the 50s, 60s, 70s range. As a 21-year-old, that seemed pretty boring to me. So I wanted to be more downtown Chicago. I met a gentleman named Alex Dana, who was a gentleman I worked with for 15 years over my career. He was the mastermind behind the Italian group Rosebud, which was known for its large portions, old school Italian cuisine. And he was probably most known that his restaurants were busier than busy. He had mastered, doing over 1,000 covers at night for dinner. And back then there weren't computers, there weren't, all the technology that we have today. He did it by hand and a line down the street. He had more demand than you could dream of. It was unbelievable. Halfway through my time at Rosebud, I left. I went and worked with a gentleman named Michael Mina in San Francisco, who has about 30 restaurants worldwide now. Michael, truly one of the best chefs in the world I've ever seen, and more than a gentleman. I mean, just the nicest guy you've ever met. Was great to me, and it was just another way of looking through the kaleidoscope at the restaurant business. I spent 2 great years with him, and I missed Chicago so much I came back home. Went back to Rosebud and worked with them for a little while longer before we opened Chicago Cut.
Interesting. Now, also what I want to talk about is the pairing with the steak. Now, I love wine. I love Italian wine. I collect Barolo. I love Barolo. Barolo Barbaresco. I know that's high end. I love to collect that type of wine, and I love a really good dried red wine with a nice rib. I know everyone's getting drooling right now as I'm saying this, with a nice prime ribeye. Tell us about at Chicago Cut Steakhouse. What are some of the pairings that you recommend? Wine with your steak. What is some of the people come in and you recommend as far as the brand of wine or the producers?
Sure. I mean, so I think every country has a heavier style red wine that's going to pair well with steak, and so then part of the question is, which country are we going to go with, and then which specific varietal wine we're going to pick. Some of our favorite things are exactly what you're talking about, Barolo and Barbarescos. We love Brunellos. We have some great 16 Brunellos going on that are all 98 to 100 points. We love some great Bordeaux's, and as France kind of diminished in the last 10 years, I think it's coming back now because I don't think France being, a predominant winemaker is ever going to change. I mean, they do have it down, no question. And then, of course, it's America. It's just like Tito's Vodka, American made. We love our American Cabernet Sauvignon. And as the Americans are becoming more highly educated by the Europeans. Our wines are truly getting better every year. And, I'm proud to say there's a bunch of boutique, small, hand-picked, hand-produced type Cabernets that go really, really great with our steaks. And it's exciting to me to see those come in because they're doing just as much of a craft with the wine as we are with the steak.
It's like the West Coast wines, huh? Like the California.
Yeah, I mean, we're specifically in Napa Valley. We're probably specifically in a couple of subregions within Napa Valley that we really like and go well. Obviously, there are lots of people today who like blends. I feel that there's much more of an artistry to it. And that's very much true. It's just like anything in life. You may like the color blue. I may like the color black. And it just depends what your favorite things are. Yeah.
Yeah, with me, just a nice dry red wine with Barolo Barbaresco and a steak. I'm in heaven. I'm in absolute heaven. I could have that every night of the week, So anyway, get.
And to answer your question, you know what? I mean, obviously everybody's on a different budget, right?
Yeah.
And so I say this to people. I say, listen, if you're on a lower end budget, find a mid-range winery that may have a second label or a second wine that they make. And so I use the example, simply there's a winery called Dariouche in Napa Valley. They have a wine called Caravan. Their secondary wine is slightly over $100 a bottle. It drinks 5% less than the regular Cabernet Sauvignon, and it's half the price. There are wineries such as, if you want to go the next step up, there's wineries such as Harlan and Donna that have second labels, which are Harlan's is called Mascot, Donna's is called Vaso. These are bottles of wine they're selling for $1,500 to $3,000 bottles. Their B label juice is selling for $200 to $300. And it's a great bottle of wine. It's a great drink. If you win Powerball, then you're going straight to heaven. You're going to go drink some Screaming Eagle or one of the 100-point wines from Harlan, or you're going to find some 100 Acre from Jason Woodbridge that will knock your socks off.
Great.
But if you're not hitting the Powerball and you want to go get a nice steak, but you don't want to get a steak, you want to get a nice burger, tell them where you can get a nice burger from, David.
So one thing we learned in studying a lot of the New York steakhouses was that they were taking their trimmings and making their own burgers out of it. The more and more we had them, the more we fell in love with them. We were actually at Grill 21, and if you remember from the movie Wall Street, Michael Douglas was in there having lunch, and it's one of those classic scenes from our generation growing up. My partner Matt had never been there. He's Irish born and bred. And they make their own bun, they make their own burger, they make their own ketchup. I mean, it's done to the nines. Matt had 2 burgers that day, all the fries and all the ketchup. It was so good. So at that point, we decided we were going to take the trimmings from USDA prime dry aged steaks and make our own burgers. We hand pack them, we make them fresh every day. When we run out, we run out. But it's a 12-ounce burger, so it's enough burger to let you take a good nap in the afternoon in your office if you got a couch. And it's a quarter of the price, and so it's just like dying and going to heaven.
That burger's got to be fire. I'm just thinking about it right now, and it's a little late lunchtime here in New York. But anyway, some of the high-profile people that's usually huge when you get people who are known showing up, whether it's politicians or celebrities. How did that start with your steakhouse and like known people that high-profile visiting?
So Matt, my partner, had worked at Smith & Wollensky for 12 years, and I had worked at Rosebud for 15 years. So we knew a significant amount of people in Chicago at that point. And so as we opened and the restaurant became very popular right out of the gates, we were busy, and we were busy enough to attract celebrities and sports stars and all of them. There was definitely a couple turning points for us. About a month after we opened, Oprah Winfrey came in late for dinner, almost at closing time. She had dinner. She politely told us she was enjoying everything, but we couldn't really tell if she truly was or not. And about 2 hours after she walked out of the door, she sent out a tweet that said something to the nature of, I don't get out very much, but I have to tell you, I just had one of my best meals of my entire life at Chicago Cut Steakhouse.
That's life-changing. Yeah.
Our website crashed that morning. Our phone lines were locked up for about 6 months. We would assign an operator to answer each line. We had 8 lines going for 6 months just to make all the reservations. There's things like that. There was Charles Barkley, who's been a client of mine for 30 years, went on TNT one night. Our number one player was Derrick Rose, and he was hurt, and he screamed on TV. I don't know why Derrick Rose is watching his team lose so bad. I would have gotten out of my chair and gone to Chicago Cut and gotten a New York strip for dinner while this game was going on. There was the time President Obama sent Jay-Z to the restaurant, and within 5 minutes, there were 5,000 people outside the restaurant waiting for Jay-Z to walk out because he was with Beyonce and their baby.
Wow.
There's times Eddie Vedder played guitar in our patio. I mean, so all these things have kind of happened over the years that are unbelievable.
Well, since you mentioned your website, I want to let our listeners know it's ChicagoCutSteakhouse.com. ChicagoCutSteakhouse.com, so you can check it out. And it's located 300 North LaSalle Drive, Chicago, Illinois. And David's the managing partner of Chicago Cut Steakhouse. And Michael, if you want to add to that, anything.
Yeah, sure. So what I want to say about Chicago Cut is if you want, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, obviously you want to dress nice, but if you want a burger, you can go in there and you can have a have a drink and a couple burgers with your significant other or some boys for less than $100. But if you want to enjoy yourself, you want to wow your girlfriend, your fiance, or your boyfriend, or whoever, you just want to have a good time, treat yourself, go out there, enjoy it. I promise you, it's going to be the best steak, best whatever you have in your life. And there's so much more on the menu. And that's you have so many signature foods on the menu. The calamari is great. Everything that you have there is great. I think you guys have sushi too, which is just you know what I'm saying? Who would have thought that the number one steakhouse was also going to have sushi on their menu?
That a lot lately. It's interesting you say that. There's a place in New York called Catch, and it's very popular here in New York. And I was there actually last weekend. And I think the sushi is probably more popular than steak, believe it or not. You know, they put the blowtorch to it and everything like that. So it's interesting that sushi is now becoming a staple of some of these world-renowned steakhouses, which I find the evolution of that's very interesting to me.
Last time I was there, Anthony Rizzo was there. That was nice. He was a nice guy. I got to take a picture with Rizzo. And he had nothing but good things to say about the menu, the restaurant. He loved the place. Every time I have somebody from Barstool come to town, I try to get them to go, but usually we're at a sports event or we're doing something crazy and we can never get to it in time. But trust me, Frank the Tank will be there soon. He every single time we talk to him, we talk about Chicago Cut. He's like, "Oh, you guys got to take me. You guys got to take me." You'll always see the ESPN guys like Kaplan. Shout out David Kaplan. Just went to the Chicago Sports Hall of Fame. And good guy. So you'll always see somebody there. It's always a live event. It's literally like going into a movie every time you're there. So you guys got to check out Chicago Cut.
When Frank the Tank shows up, that's when you know you made it.
Exactly.
I'll tell you a quick story on Rizzo that nobody knows. So during COVID, the Cubs had quarantine rules that players couldn't go into restaurants, and they weren't supposed to sit outside either. And Rizzo texted me and he says, "Listen, it's my birthday. I got to have your steak. I don't care what I got to do." I said, "Fine, I'll just bring it to your house." He goes, "No, I don't want to sit in my house. I only sit in my house or go to Wrigley, and that's boring." I said, "Well, how are we going to do this?" He goes, "I'm going to sit on my boat on the river. Nobody will see me. I'll wear a hoodie. Just bring me a ribeye and a piece of chocolate cake." And so there was Anthony Rizzo on his birthday floating in the middle of the river, eating a ribeye and a piece of chocolate cake during COVID because he wasn't allowed to go anywhere.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's
what a legend.
Yeah, that's great.
That's a story you'll never hear. Dude, I can't even imagine. It probably wasn't even his boat. It was probably, who's the other guy? Lester. Have you ever seen his boat?
Lester had a boat as well. No, Rizzo had his own. He had his own boat. It was a really nice boat. So he obviously put it back in Florida where his family's from, but he was on it quite a bit last summer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, David, I know you have to get back to work in a few minutes, so I just wanted to quickly plug once again, Chicago Cut Steakhouse, 300 North LaSalle Drive. and at ChicagoCutSteakhouse.com. And this is connected to Wiener Mag. That's Wiener with 2 E's, WienerMag.com. This is the first official podcast. Guess who's coming for dinner? And it's kind of cool. My boy Mikey Betts over here, Chicago. I'm in New York. And it's kind of between Chicago and New York. I mean, the amount of great restaurants that we can cover and do podcasts, it's just never ending, you know? And it's interesting because you always think Chicago being very much a sausage town, and also kind of New York a little bit. I mean, the hot dog was invented here and it ended up in Chicago 30 years later at the Columbian Exposition. But it's really cool connecting with you, David. Totally appreciate you taking out time. And Mike, if you want to add to that, anything?
Yeah, David, I just want to say thank you. Obviously, I'll text you every time I give you a shout out on my own show, Mikey Betts. You can find that at MikeyBetts.com or any podcast, The Mikey Betts Show. And yeah, it's just crazy. You guys instantly became an icon for Chicago. So I'm really glad. Like when you think of Chicago, you think of Wrigley Field, Soldier Field, United Center, Chicago Cut. Don't want to throw a competitor in there, but you're also a friend with Armando. So La Scarola, like you think of all these nice, great restaurants, and it's just cool to see you guys being an icon. And I'm glad we got to have you as our first guest. I don't know how we're going to top the rest of them. So, yeah. David, I appreciate it, and you're the best. Appreciate you.
And I can't wait to visit.
Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. And obviously, I'm the testament that you can still go start a business and compete with the big boys. And so I hope everyone chases all their dreams in life. So I appreciate it, and kick it out of the park, you too.
Wiener Mag.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Take care, guys.
We'll see you.